Absolutely. Hello, and welcome to this conference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I'm your host, Aaron Fine, the social media marketing coordinator for MS Focus, and I'm joined by Tiffany Malone, the director of clinic operation for the MS Achievement Center in Citrus Heights, California. Today, as part of her Mental Health Matters series, Tiffany will be discussing anxiety and MS. After her presentation, we'll open it up to your questions and comments. Tiffany, thank you so much for being with us. And now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here this evening. And thank you to the Focus MS Foundation for having me back. I think I'm going to share my screen. So let me do that now. All right. So I don't know how many of you participated in the last quarter of Mental Health Matters, but as a reminder, or for those of you who didn't know this is going to be a quarterly program with me and with the MS Foundation. So we're very excited about that. And as Aaron said, this month or this quarter is about anxiety. So this is titled Addressing Anxiety, Awareness, Acknowledgement, and Action. And let me figure out why that's not working. There we go. And for our objectives this evening, we have that we're going to identify the contributing factors of anxiety. We're going to learn how to incorporate strategies to manage those contributing factors. And we're going to learn about how to utilize resources to address the symptoms and the diagnosis of anxiety. So let's start off with the first part, the awareness part. What do we need to know about anxiety? What is it? Why are we talking about it? And this is why. For people living with MS, you are 3 times more likely to have a diagnosis of anxiety disorder than the general population. And that affects about 40% of people living with MS. And I want you to pay a close attention to the diagram that's on the right-hand side of the screen. Let me move my face out of the way here. It shows anxiety and depression. And I have shown this to some of you before, so it may look familiar, but I bring it back because it really is an important way to look at this. For anyone who is challenged by anxiety and or depression, and sometimes they do go together, it can spiral into other things. It can cause communication deficits. And we all know that living with MS, there already may be communication deficits or communication challenges. This can intensify those challenges. There can be strain on relationships. We're going to talk more about that as we move along, but anxiety by itself can really cause strain, both from living with anxiety, but also from some of the treatments that that you may have if you have a diagnosis of anxiety. And what all of that can lead to is potential social withdrawal. And I really want us to pay close attention to that, because if you've joined me in the past, I've talked about the importance of recognizing social isolation and how that can affect our health. And as a person withdraws and is more isolated, that puts that person at a higher risk for premature death. Hopefully, we don't want that. So that's why it's so important that we talk about this and we keep addressing these issues so that hopefully we can live healthy lifestyles and try to avoid those other challenges and risk factors. So before we dive too deep into the definition of anxiety, what I want to do is talk about the word worry. Oftentimes the word anxiety is used to describe worry or concern. And I think it's socially appropriate at this point that we use anxiety a lot. It's kind of one of those norms, but it may not be the actual definition or the actual word that we want to use. So what I'd love to have you do is to put into the chat, hopefully we can do that. I didn't get permission, Aaron, sorry. How do you describe worry? What would you describe a worry to be or to feel like? And I know that's going to create some silence for a minute as you guys are putting in your chat. Let me see if I can see that stuff. Okay, fear. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you getting that in there. Loss of control. Oh, we have two Kathys on. Fear again, stress. Okay, more fear, uncertainty, the unknowns. That's great. And so for those of you who have put some of those words in there, and some of them may tie into the emotion part, but how does that make you feel? And I know fear is in there. Helpless, I heard or I saw. Panic, that's really important. We're going to come back to that in just a little bit. Unable to focus on the here and now. Concern, scared. Absolutely. Get down here. Stuck. That's a really good way to describe what worry and in some cases anxiety can feel like. Sometimes it's hard to get away from the word anxious or anxiety because that's what we're used to hearing. Like I said, it's become a very popular word, but it may not always be anxiety. And let me show you this. So these are the different definitions of worry versus anxiety. So worry is unease, uncertainty about actual or potential problems. So in some cases, we are worried about the future or the potential of something happening. Whereas anxiety is that intense, excessive, persistent worry. We're using worry again, but the important part here is that anxiety is that it's persistent and excessive and intense. So it's that worry, it's that fear about everyday situations. It can cause fast heart rate. It can cause rapid breathing, sweating, fatigue. The key here is that there are physical manifestations of anxiety as well as that intensity of the worry. So it's not just that I'm worried for a little bit of time. It's not that I'm concerned about something and I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to gather more information about it. It's that it's overwhelming my thoughts, my feelings, and affecting my ability to perform day-to-day activities. So now let's dive into the contributing factors. Let's acknowledge them. Let's be aware of them. Hurt. This is really talking about emotional pain. This is talking about emotional discomfort, psychological distress. Someone said stress in the chat box. That this is really what we're talking about. That stress, that hurt, that may have been caused by somebody else. It could be caused self-inflicted. It could be us having thoughts and feelings that are persistent, that are really causing that emotional distress. It can cause feelings of sadness, of unease, of nervousness, and it can impact our daily life. It does impact daily life. Again, this can be hurt that was caused by somebody, someone not just hurt your feelings, but really caused emotional damage. Again, it can also be self-inflicted, that we have thoughts, perhaps from the past, perhaps we have guilt, perhaps we have stress and anxiety about future or what the present has to hold. But this also can talk about physical pain and hurt in the physical sense. I know many people living with MS experience physical pain, and that can lead to anxiety. That can be a contributing factor. When is this pain going to ever stop? Will it ever stop? I know several people who have trigeminal neuralgia, for example, which is that extreme nerve pain in the jaw and the face, And oftentimes I'll hear, I'm just wondering when the next zap will happen. And having those thoughts and having those worries about when the next time it's going to happen or when will it ever stop? will definitely impact daily life and how we move through our daily lives and how we're going to get through activities that we need or want to do. And oftentimes that hurt, whether it be emotional or physical, can damage the ability to be able to do that. Betrayal can also impact and cause, be a contributing factor of anxiety. Again, this can be stuff that happened from the past. Betrayal can cause both short-term and long-term effects from the trauma that has been experienced. Perhaps you even feel betrayed by your own body for those of you living with MS. If I have caregivers on here, loved ones, maybe you feel betrayed because of the diagnosis of MS, because it changed the path of your relationship. And with betrayal, it's important to note that it's much like grief. And I've talked about grief in the past, but grief and betrayal are not sequential. They're not time-bound. People move through them at different paces and in different stages. What does that mean? It means that you don't start from A and go to Z and then you're done. It can go back and forth. It's fluid, depending on how intense the trauma was and how those feelings continue to be with you. That will impact how that feeling of betrayal will affect your ability to move forward with trust. Not just with that person or with yourself, but with trust in anyone or anything. And it also can cause poor self-esteem. If I can't trust myself, if I can't trust other people, if I can't trust anything, then my self-esteem is going to go down. It's going to plummet naturally because I don't have anything to depend on, not even myself in some cases. So this is where anxiety can be presented through betrayal and really impact, again, our daily function. Okay, thought I had something else there. I want to talk about the land of what if. What if is a question without an answer. We can battle this question. We can ask this question repeatedly. We're not ever going to have a definitive answer because we don't have all of the information. We're asking a question that doesn't have all of the pieces to it. We're trying to put together a puzzle without all of the pieces. So what this can lead to, and we're going to talk about this again in a few minutes, but it can lead to what I call future tripping. I'm worried about the future. I don't have all the information. It's not here yet. But I can create anxiety for myself. I can create stress and worry to that level of intensity, so much so that I'm so worried about the future that I'm missing out on that here and now that someone put in the chat box. Catastrophizing. This is that concept that everything is a volcano that's exploding. Everything is, oh my gosh, the world is ending. There are catastrophes in life. Is everything a catastrophe? And if we find ourselves always jumping from 0 to 100 to that explosive feeling, we might want to check in about what's causing that. And that also can lead to worst case scenario thoughts. Oh my gosh, what if this pain never goes away? Oh my gosh, what if I'm never able to trust anyone again? These are things that we can ask ourselves, and that will continue to lead to that intense feeling of anxiety and those challenges that we've already talked about. So, would we be willing to change the narrative? Would we be willing to change the question? Instead of asking what if, could we ask what's possible? What's possible has more, you have more likelihood of answering what's possible than you have in answering what if. Okay. And why I say that is because it starts to get you thinking about what am I willing and able to do? Please note that willing and able are underlined because I want those to be emphasized. We need to use those words when we're asking this question. The word and in between it is a connector, and it's bolded because we need to ask ourselves that question, the question with both of those words. What am I willing and able to do? If you only ask part of the question, you may not be fully able or willing to do that thing. You can answer the question, am I willing to do something? Yes, I am. Am I able to do it? And that will cause conflict. That will lead you to more stress, more worry, more concern, eventually, potentially more anxiety. So ask yourself, what am I willing and able to do, rather than asking yourself, what if? Sorry, I'm just getting my chat box up here so I can keep tabs on that as well. So I want to talk about threat for a minute. Threat seems like a really harsh word. And this character is from a Pixar Disney movie, Inside Out, and this is the anxiety character. Anxiety can actually act as a protector for you. It can act as a safety measure to protect us from an unsafe situation. It can give us heightened awareness. That's if we're in that unsafe, dangerous situation. It can also work in the opposite on the flip side of things, as anxiety is telling us here, hi, I'm anxiety and I'm here to protect you, I think, ... And that's because it can also, when it's at that level of intensity, when it's frequent, when it's consistent, it can then turn into you isolating. And I want you to remember that diagram on that earlier slide that I shared, in that when we isolate, when I'm using threats to protect myself, when I'm using anxiety to protect myself, if I'm doing that consistently, what that can create is that I get comfortable with isolation and not putting myself out there, not going back out into the world. And that isolation, as we talked about already, can lead to those concerns, those health concerns that can lead to that premature death. We hopefully don't want that. So we have to be really careful with how we use anxiety and how comfortable we become using anxiety, so that we're not misusing that and using it to our disadvantage. Oftentimes when we feel threatened, when we feel those things of hurt and betrayal, what will happen is that, sorry, I'm looking at that chat, is that we don't want to get hurt. And so when we isolate, we're kind of in that bubble. And although that bubble can be protective for a certain period of time, if we get comfortable with that, we don't put ourselves out there to be vulnerable. And that can then lead to danger. So we have to be really careful and balance that. I want to address a couple of these things going on in the chat box. Is this like fight or flight? Yes, it can be. It can be. So if I feel threatened, the fight or flight method is that I'm either going to go at it and I'm going to take it on head on. Flight is, nope, I'm going to retreat. I'm going to back away from that. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to address it. The problem with that when we consistently flight is that we're not ever addressing the problem. We're not ever addressing that contributing factor. Short term, that's okay. Long term, not so much, because we're never addressing those contributing factors. So then the anxiety may be lessened and you may not feel that level of anxiety anymore, but we've created another problem in that now we have backed away so consistently and we've gotten comfortable to do that, that we're never stepping out. We're never putting ourselves in that vulnerable position, and we're never putting ourselves out there to potentially have something good happen. Okay. Someone else wrote, I'm frustrated frequently because I experience fight or flight for no reason. So that may be something to look at. If we can't identify, and we'll talk about this more in the resources, if we can't identify where that feeling is coming from, but we feel like it's always with us, that may be that you have anxiety, and that you may want to address that with a medical provider to see what can help you feel like you're more balanced. If we're always in that stage of being way up here or way down here, long term, that's going to be dangerous again. So we want to make sure that we're addressing why is that happening if I can't figure out what those contributing factors are. And hopefully that helped answer that part. So let's talk about the coping strategies. Let's talk about what do we do? What are our action items? What do we have available to us to address these feelings? My first question to you is to challenge your thinking. Many of you have heard me say, change the narrative, figure out where what the head chatter is. Ask yourself, what is it and whose voice is it? Challenge your thoughts, challenge your thinking, challenge what is going on up in your head. Because we want to find out, is it distorted? Did the real somehow get broken? Did we somehow put together too many things, too many pieces of different puzzles? And now we have this belief or this idea or this feeling that is distorted, that is not correct. But when we have those feelings, when we have those beliefs, we're trusting ourselves that it's true and we're going to act on it. If we're acting on distorted thoughts, then we're probably moving forward with misinformation. Have I jumped to a conclusion based on past experiences? Perhaps. Based on what I believe to be true, based on the information I have at the time. Am I jumping to a conclusion without gathering more information, without putting a pause on it for a second and saying, okay, what is this really about? Where did this come from? Why am I having these thoughts? And just taking that pause and asking yourself those questions to figure out, what do I do now? What else do I need? Do I need to get more information? Catastrophizing. Again, yes, there are catastrophes. I don't deny that. I don't want to take that away from anyone. But are we always thinking in those catastrophic thoughts, that it's the all or nothing kind of thinking? All or nothing thinking. It's all in or not at all. We need to have balance. We need to be somewhere in the middle for most of our time. If we're always all or nothing, if we're always in that catastrophic thinking pattern, we're always going to be at that heightened level of anxiety. You may even experience that racing heart rate, the rapid breathing, and it's going to be exhausting. So it's going to lead to fatigue because you don't want your body to always be experiencing that level of heart rate and breathing and whatnot. Ask yourself, is this worry something you can control? I saw control come up several times in the chat box. Is it in my control? Why is that worth asking? Go back up to the first question. If it's not in my control, then has it led to distorted thinking? Have I created some narrative that is not completely true, not completely accurate, but I did that because I felt in control at the time? If I'm not in control of a situation, I will do my best to try and get myself in control of that situation. You feel better when you're in control. When you feel out of control, it's uncomfortable, it's stressful, it causes worry and fear. So what can I do to get myself back in control? I can change the narrative. And in some cases that can be damaging, because if I've put together a distorted thought or belief, then I've led myself down the wrong path. Oh, sorry. Let me just change that really quick. let's see. Someone said that they thought they were always calm. I have been worrying internally, I guess. There was surgery, some symptoms from that. Stress can absolutely cause hair loss. Absolutely, it can. So what's happening internally can then turn into physical pain and challenges. Okay. So yes, it absolutely can. And oftentimes we can present ourselves so well, but internally we're a hot mess. We really want to take care of ourselves, and we do need to do that from the inside out. We need to first check with what's going on in our mind, body, and spirit. Okay, so that we understand what we are dealing with and not putting on that mask. I remember there was a commercial for, I think it was an antidepressant, where the person was holding up the sign that, yeah, I'm okay, putting on kind of that fake smile. Yeah, we can do that for a period of time, but eventually that is going to become extremely exhausting for you. And so we have to check in about that. Anxiety makes me sick to my stomach. It absolutely can. Absolutely. Sabrina's wanting to know if anyone else feels that symptom with anxiety. Sabrina, I can tell you I've been in the mental health field for a very long time, and you are not alone with that symptom. It can absolutely cause GI distress, stomach aches, all of the above. So you're not alone, and hopefully you can find some ways to manage that, to manage the anxiety, to lessen those other symptoms. Another question that might be asked is, what really happened? It may not be all that bad. And Dawn, that's a really good point. Again, maybe I am overthinking this and making it that catastrophe, when really it wasn't really that big of a deal. And sometimes when we take that extra minute, that extra breath, we might be able to realize that and see that for what it's worth. So now I want to ask you, does your worry lead to fear? And if so, what are you doing to manage it? What are your strategies that you're currently working with, that you're currently using to manage those worries, stress, concern? You can change the word worry if that doesn't speak well to you. But I also want you to ask yourself and answer, if you would, in the chat box, does your worry lead to fear? Meditate. We're going to talk about that. Yes, I'm glad to see that. Sleep. That can be very helpful as long as we're not getting too much of it and always resorting to that. That can lead to that isolation. But I very much appreciate that we're using sleep to help kind of calm down. It's a great strategy to go take a nap, go to bed for the night, let the worries, write them down, leave them on the bedside table, and then get up the next day. It will help you answer that question that Dawn suggested. What really happened? Let me go back to it. The other thing that it can allow you to do is to say, how much information do I currently have? What am I thinking about right now with the information I have? Do I need to get more? Do I need to get more information? Try to talk myself out of it. That's not very successful. I can totally understand that. And oftentimes, again, we can just start to spiral. And when we start to try to talk ourselves out of it, we just get further deep into it. So sometimes we can talk to somebody else. We can write it down and leave it for a period of time and come back to it. Key point is to come back to it and try something like that. So try to modify that a little bit. My worry is fear. Praying, resting, deep breathing, lots of breathing. Good. I'm glad to hear that people are breathing. This is really good. Music, counting to 10. This is not a rapid count to 10, by the way, people. Make it a slow count of 10. Calming music, that's great. Exercise, lots of breathing. Love, love, love that. I often will say that we can be in the here and now if we're with our breath and with our feet. If you're with your breath and your feet, then you're in the here and now. So breathing is good. I usually call someone to make me laugh. I hope everyone has that list of people. Journal, box breathing, mindful redirection. I'm interested to know, Mindy, if you do guided mindful redirection, or if you come up with that on your own. Love to know more about that. Doing something physical. I went to bed because I just couldn't do it anymore. Absolutely. I'm glad you got up today, and hopefully today was a better day for you. I see more mindful moments of breathing. Okay, I appreciate Melissa saying my worrying leads to panic, being startled, afraid, depressed, anxiety. So that's something to be very aware of, and it sounds like Melissa is, because again, when we're in those heightened states and when worry can jump to that extreme, how do we stop that? How do we figure out how to not let it become more than a short-term worry so that we can address that? I love seeing all of these. Thank you so much, you guys, for contributing. Knitting, doing something you love. I appreciate that that's in here because we haven't talked about that yet. Finding something that you love to do can be that distraction, can give you that time to step away from whatever's causing that worry, stress, anxiety, and allow you to do something that gives you, that you're passionate about, that gives you hope, that gives you joy. Go to a movie. If nothing else can distract you, a real good movie will. I'm struggling to find ways to control my anxiety and stress. I'm glad you did too, Michelle. Glad you're here. Having a really hard time to get motivated to do what you may know that you need to do. Let's talk about habits for a minute. Habits are hard to make. They're also hard to break. So if we're in the habit of those stress, worries, concerns leading to anxiety and panic, that is a really hard habit to break, especially when we need to create a new habit of replacing that anxiety and panic with something healthy. Start off really, really small. Start off with taking one deep breath and seeing how that feels. And if you're willing and able, take a second deep breath. If that's not working, try to write it down. Have notepads wherever you might be, bedside table, end table in your dining room table, countertop, work, wherever you are, make sure that that's there and try to write it down. I really, really, really strongly encourage the writing part, dictating, use your phone, your computer, whatever, because you are in control of putting it in a safe place. You can always go back to it if and when you need to. You don't have to carry that thinking that, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. I need to always worry about this, or I don't know what to do with it. Put it somewhere. Put it in, and it's in a safe place because you know where to go back to. And although that may not cause or give you motivation to do that, hopefully the success of something will then turn into your motivator and you'll want to do it again and again. That's what creates the healthy habit. Figuring out different scenarios, how they play out and how to be prepared for whatever happens. Boy, is that a big one. How do I prepare for whatever may happen? That's tough because again, that can quickly lead us to the what if question. And we're trying to answer all of them. Well, what if this happens? Well, what if that happens? Well, what if that happens? And again, that takes time, that takes energy, and it definitely can cause emotional distress. So we want to be careful about that and make sure that if we're ready for whatever happens, what if we weren't ready for everything? So let's look at what's in front of us right now, what information we have right now, and figure out what else we need to get, or what can I do with it? What can I control? We've got lots of music listeners. I love that. Okay, so one of the habits, one of the strategies might be eating, and enjoying those comfort foods. So if that is your strategy and that's causing other issues, health concerns, weight gain, then perhaps what we might do is find something that we still like, but that is a healthier version. I'm not suggesting that you hit the celery hardcore because I'm not willing to do that. If that's something you enjoy, great. But I'm one to go to the chips, to the salty snacks if I'm stressed. So what can I do to replace that? Found apple slices work really well. So especially in a peanut butter dip, fantastic. So try something like that. Find something that may not be that you're still, it's still a strategy that's working for you, but it's not causing the other health concerns. Turn on the TV and ignore it. Noise, any kind of noise might be helpful. Coloring, I'm a big fan of coloring. I highly recommend it if you're able to do that. And if you can't physically do it, there is an app for that. It's called Happy Color. It will make you happy. Breathe and meditate. Try not to spin out, write notes. If I can't stop and write a note, I put it into a God box, turn it over. I need to know more about that. The New York Time games, great. There's a free version. You can play several of them for free every day. It's fantastic. Love that. Snuggle on those four-legged members of our family. Absolutely. Play a game. Play a game. That's a great strategy. Turn off the TV. Yes, if the TV is what's causing you anxiety right now, especially with news and social media, turn it off. I will personally say that I have not had Facebook for, I think maybe a year now, close to a year. Haven't missed it. If I need to talk to somebody, if I want to know what's going on with them, I need to pick up the phone. I need to send a text message. I don't have to have social media to do that. Social media, it has a great value in people's lives, and I don't want to take that away, but it can also send us into an anxious state of mind reading whatever's on there. Oh, someone's replacing social media and TV with music. Love that. I think that's what that said. Stretching, so getting into more of that physical stuff. Eating habits with pain and anxiety. Now I'm more mindful with my worries. And Alex, I hope I'm interpreting this right, that by more mindful with my worries, in that you are asking yourself, what's really happening? Where is this coming from? What can I do about it? What can I control? I love that. Reading, cooking and baking. All right, Maria, I expect to have some of that soon. Grandkids, just as valuable as our four-legged friends, right? So family can be an absolute savior for us. Okay, great question. Thank you, Alex, for answering me. Great question by Anne. What do you do when your loved ones don't understand your anxiety and it's not easy to turn it off? My suggestion is that there are conversations with loved ones outside of an incident or a situation where you are feeling anxious, where you can describe as best as possible what it feels like to be in that anxious state. That is so valuable for the other person to hear when they are willing to truly hear what you're saying. The other thing I would suggest is that you encourage them or tell them what they can do to support you when you are in those anxious states. And maybe you don't have that answer, but one of the things is, maybe I don't need you to ask a bunch of questions. I don't need you to ask what's wrong. At that point, I may not be able to answer you. I may not be able to have the words to answer you. So I need space, or I need you to hold my hand, or I need you to turn on a movie. Use what works for you, that you do for yourself, and invite them to participate. There is no one that is going to understand 100% of what you are going through, whether that's anxiety, MS, depression, anything, other than you. You are the only person who 100% understands what you are going through and what your journey feels like. But they can get pretty close if they're willing to hear what you need in those moments, okay, or in those times. Self-talk and low self-esteem can keep you from starting anything or even anything that you love to do. Why start? It won't be perfect, so why try? Why not? What if it's not perfect? What is possible? Imperfection is possible, right? So again, that's where we can change that narrative of what if it's not perfect, which then leads to it's not going to be perfect, so I'm not going to even try. Imperfection can exist too. It should exist. If we were all perfect, this would be a boring conversation. Dr. Boster says, you are a you expert. Yes, I'm going to have to adopt that. I might have to steal that from Dr. Boster. Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing that. Imperfection can be beautiful. Imperfection can lead to what we think perfection is, if we allow it, if we are willing and able to allow it. Try it. The worst that's going to happen is that you're going to be disappointed, right? But the best that's going to happen is you got distracted for a while. You got to do something that you love doing. And even if it didn't lead to the exact final project that you were hoping or expecting it to, look at what you did create. Look at what you did do and appreciate that. Oh, we're all perfectly imperfect. Amen. Self-compassion has been a crucial key for me in learning to deal with not being perfect. Goes back to that self-esteem. If we have lived any amount of time with anxiety and allowed that to be the key player, then we are going to have low self-esteem. We aren't going to be compassionate with ourselves. We're going to be critical. So why? Why are we doing that to ourselves? Why are we not loving the person that we are right here, right now? Yeah, it's not who we were 10 years ago. It's not who we were 10 minutes ago. It's who we are right now. Give grace. Again, love that. I just have to say how much I appreciate how much interaction there is. The one thing I don't like about webinars is that I'm not in front of my group. And I love the live stuff, but I really appreciate that we can use this chat to do this because it really makes me feel like we're all together. All right, here is a little, maybe a mantra, if you will. Embrace all parts of you. If anxiety is preventing you from enjoying your life, loosen its grip on your happiness and find gratitude for what you have and who you are. I'm going to read that again. If anxiety is preventing you from enjoying your life, loosen its grip on your happiness and find gratitude for what you have and who you are. So I want to encourage you to free your mind and focus on what you can control. We've talked about control. We've used that word a couple or several times throughout this evening. Live in the moment. If I don't say anything else tonight, I will go to one of my group titles and it's called Be Here Now. I will say that probably every time you see me. Be present in your moment. Be where your breath, be where your feet are. That is what you can control. You can control that you are right here, right now. You can work with that. So live in the moment. Find balance. Find balance emotionally. We don't want to be in those extreme peaks and valleys. We don't want to be in that panic state or that all or nothing thinking. Okay. We want to find somewhere in the middle. We want to find balance. And I want to say that we want to find balance, not just emotionally, we want to find balance physically too. Journaling, I've talked a lot about that. I've talked a lot about writing it down, getting it down in some form, dictating it. I again, stress that, highly stress that. It's easier to say avoid overthinking than it is to do it. But again, if we use some of these strategies like breath, counting, journaling, if we can get ourselves to that point, then we can hopefully get to a point where we're avoiding that overthinking, because we're addressing what is in that moment and what information we have in that exact moment, not the what ifs, not the has-beens, but what do I have right now? Practice forgiveness. And I'm going to ask you to start with you. Forgive yourself. You didn't ask for anxiety. You didn't ask for MS. Whether you're living with it, whether you're a loved one living with it, you didn't ask for it. So forgive yourself. Forgive others as best as you can. Without forgiveness, the control is outside of your control. It's with somebody else. It's with something else. It's with a thought, a belief, a person. Take back the control. Forgive. It doesn't mean that you're going to let it go. It doesn't mean that you're going to forget. But without forgiveness, we go back to what those contributing factors are, which are hurt, emotional distress, betrayal, threat. Okay, let's not let those things have control. Let's be in control of ourselves. Learn from past experiences. I'm going to emphasize the word learn. Let us not live in the past, right? Let's not dwell in the past. Let's not be mad that we don't have the past. Whatever it is, let's learn from it. Let's learn that we got to experience those things. And I have appreciation for that. Let's learn from the past, mistakes that perhaps we made, trust that was broken. Okay, well, how will I do that differently next time? Okay. Build your community. It is so important that we have people. We have a medical community. We have a social community. We have a family community. Whatever it is, we have a book club community. We have a video game community. Whatever it is, have it, appreciate it, build it, strengthen it, allow it to give you joy, allow it to give you support, depend on it in a way that is healthy and that gives you that support and that thing or that person to go to when I don't know what else to do. I can control that. I can control who or what I go to. Let's see, I'm just checking over here. Whoops, sorry about that. And meditation. So I want to talk about meditation for just a minute. It does not have to be the silence and breathing. It can be so many things. Many of you mentioned music. That's your go-to. That can be a form of meditation. Anything that can take you away from whatever is causing that stress and worry and concern and allow you to be in that present moment. If you're rocking out to a song, if you're listening to calming gospel music or calming music, whatever it is, you're in that present moment. You are listening to those words of that song. You're listening to that music. You're listening to those instruments. That is what your focus is on. That is absolutely a form of meditation. It does not have to be the traditional meditation that we all think about when we think of meditation or hear that word. It can be whatever works for you. The deep breathing, absolutely. And meditation does not have to be a whole 30-minute session. It can be that 10 seconds that Irene was talking about. It can be short and sweet and to the point and get the job done. So I know a lot of people kind of shy away from meditation because they feel uncomfortable with it. Try whatever works for you that gets you back into that state that you're present in your moment. This is the exact same resource slide that I had for the last quarter's session, and it's all the same. Nothing has changed as far as this is concerned. There's Psychology Today, which is a great resource in the United States where you can filter your area, what kind of therapist you want, what you're looking to address. And it can help you identify someone who fits all of that, including insurance coverage. Same with Mental Health America, lots of resources, lots of ideas. They have lots of strategies that you can look at for mental health. The others are on there. I'm not saying this is the exclusive list. This is just the list I've come up with. I want to talk about medication for a minute. If you are struggling to get out of that anxious feeling and state, if you're feeling like you're always to that panic button, please, please, please talk to your provider. And if one medication doesn't work, don't stick with it and don't just stop it. Go back to that provider, let them know what happened, and ask them if there's something else that you can try. It may be a different dose. It may be a completely different medication. I'm not going to give suggestions of medications because there's so many out there and it is such an individualized decision. But please work with your healthcare provider. If you have a healthcare provider that doesn't really understand or doesn't specialize in mental health, I would strongly encourage you to ask to speak with a specialist. I know psychiatry doesn't always have the best rap. Basically, is people think, oh my gosh, I have to go to a psychiatrist. No, that's taboo. It's not. It is a specialist that deals with this. Please ask for a referral so that you can get in front of somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about and can help you find the right medication or the right regimen. And again, I'll say that it always pairs very well with counseling, talk therapy. Great combination. I saw someone raise their hand, except that it disappeared off of my screen, so I'm not sure where that went. So Aaron, you might have to help me with who raised their hand.
Yeah, I believe it was Kathy, but she looks like she put her hand down. Kathy, if you did have a question, please raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your question. With that being said, we do have about like 7 minutes left. This has been incredible from my perspective because not always let me take myself off of, there we go. Okay. So from my perspective, this has been one of the most interactive sessions that I have ever been a part of or witnessed. It's really showcased the fact that this is a community and the fact that everyone has come together and been vulnerable and provided some insights into what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and everyone kind of giving each other props is just kind of heartwarming. One thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that I think it's incredible, your mantra of practice forgiveness. I think that's incredibly important for everyone to kind of take that into consideration because there's not a one size fits all approach to mental wellness from my perspective. And we just need to give ourselves some grace when it comes to figuring out what works and what makes us closer to feeling balanced. So I'm just completely blown away. I'm so sorry I just took a minute of your time and we don't have that much left, but here's what I'm going to do. Folks, I know we've all been kind of interacting and a lot of questions have been answered as we've been going along. I do want to state that we do have a couple more minutes that people can ask any questions that might not have been asked. I do ask that if you do have anything else you want to present, please put it in the Q&A portion of the app instead of in the chat portion, because the chat portion is specifically so I can see whether or not we have any questions from Facebook. If you can, like I said, ask your question live by raising your hand. To do so, click the raise hand button or press *9 if you're on your phone, and I'll call on you and it will unmute. Let's get it going. We do have one individual. I'd be remiss if I didn't start with them. They did ask their question almost at the beginning, and whether or not you've already kind of answered this or not, I should let them get their question answered. This individual asked, "I've been experiencing anxiety when I prep and go to appointments and medical procedures. Any suggestions on how to stop?"
Oh, stopping it, maybe not, but reducing it. So let me piece or separate that a little bit. If it's a medical appointment, I would strongly encourage you to write down your questions, write down what your worries and your concerns are, and have them ready for you. I also recommend that if you have a longer list of questions, send that to your provider ahead of time. Let that provider know that you have these questions that you want addressed in the appointment, and to please make sure that we have time for that. They're not always
Okay,
going to
wonderful.
be able to say yes to that, but it gives them a heads up that these are the things that are causing you concern and worry, and that you definitely want them addressed. For procedures, the deep breathing is going to be your best friend. And when I say deep breathing, you want to take a really long, deep inhale and exhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth if you can do that. I know if you're in an MRI, you're not going to be able to do that actively through the MRI, but if you think about it, if you can visualize that happening, that can be really powerful for you, because I know that those things suck. So try that. I know that they also offer music sometimes in certain procedures that may or may not work for people. I can never hear the music when I'm in an MRI, so it doesn't work for me necessarily, but I'll try to find a tune or something that I can think about and just repeat it over and over again so that I'm distracted from whatever else is happening. So maybe those are a couple of ideas for you. Hopefully that answered that question.
That was really good. So Vicky asks, can you speak about MS medication-induced anxiety?
So Vicky, I don't know that I completely understand the question, but I'm going to take a shot at it. If you're talking about anxiety that leading up to taking your medication, so perhaps you're using an injectable or you're going into an infusion, my recommendations would be the same. But I'm going to add to that. Treat yourself after your MS medication. So after your infusion or after your injection, treat yourself to something that you really enjoy, whether that's an activity or a treat or something, but find something that you're going to look forward to, because it's going to make you more likely to get through that process and have something that you know is at the end of that looking or waiting for you. Hopefully that answered Vicky's
And
question.
so Vicky actually has replied, side effects of certain meds in her example, and I'm probably going to butcher this, tizanidine.
So, Vicky, what I would recommend is that you make sure that whoever the prescriber is, whichever medical healthcare provider is prescribing that medication, knows that that's what's happening, because maybe you need something else, maybe you need something in addition to, but if you haven't already, make sure that provider knows that that is a symptom of that medication for you. Because we don't want to be adding more challenges to us because of something that's supposed to fix something else. There's lots of medications out there that do a lot of amazing things. There's also a lot of medications that don't work for people. So make sure that provider knows that. And if they're not hearing you and making changes with you, then try to get somebody else that will.
Okay. We don't have any more questions in the chat. We do have a lot of kudos from the audience stating this was extremely helpful. Great information. Amazing job. Thank you so much.
The
Does
kudos
anybody
goes
else
to
have
all
any
of
other
you.
questions?
The kudos goes to the
Indeed.
audience. I mean, we can't do this without all of you. So thank you so much for being here, for participating. Like Aaron said, my heart is extremely full right now because of how much engagement we had. This really is a community, a community that I value, and I see that you all do as well. So the kudos is all yours.
Wonderful. If we seem to be done with questions. You know what? There probably would have been a lot more, but this has been such an interactive process. So you really were amazing at, making people feel heard and seen. So thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of our time. If you missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded and will be available through the MS Focus Facebook and YouTube channels. It will be immediately on our Facebook feed as soon as this concludes, and will be on our YouTube channel within 2 weeks' time. Reply to your registration email for information on how to access recordings or sign up for our newsletter to learn about our other upcoming events. With that being said, our next teleconference will be this Friday, January 31st at 3 p.m. Eastern. Busi Singhal, MD, will be presenting fatigue management in multiple sclerosis. As you leave the conference today, a survey will appear on your screen. We ask you to please take a moment to give us your feedback on this program and your suggestions for future topics. Our goal is to provide you the best and most meaningful programs possible. So, with that being said, our sincere thanks to all of our attendees for your participation, and especially to our presenter, Tiffany. Thank you so much for your time you spent to prepare and share this info with us. Good night, everyone, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.